A 4-year-old boy named Saru lived in a small Indian village. He was born in a poor family, and to survive, his older brother Godu washed train carriages, while his mother worked various jobs to feed the family. It was not an easy job. One day, his mother had to go to work the night shift, and his older brother had to put little Saru to bed and pack for the night shift. But in this story, just one moment turned everything upside down. It was on that ill-fated day that the baby did not want to sleep and was very afraid to be left alone. He cried and asked his older brother to go with him. Since Godu had to rush to work, he was very unwilling, but nevertheless agreed to put his little brother on a bicycle frame and take him with him. He thought he could do it in a couple of hours and get home without his mother finding out. Leaving Saru on the bench for just a few minutes, Godu ran to his employer. Left alone, the toddler entered the railroad car standing on the tracks out of curiosity, then dozed off from fatigue right on the floor. 5-year-old Saru woke up only when the train began to take him to God knows where. It's hard to imagine what the little child felt, watching the fields and villages from the window of the moving train. The train traveled for 2 days without stopping, and stopped in the city of Calcutta, on the other side of a vast country. The bustling city, which was so different from his quiet home village, confused the boy. Saru did not know where he was and what to do now, how to find his home. People, immersed in their own thoughts, did not pay attention to him. There were many beggars in the streets. Wandering aimlessly during the day and sleeping wherever he could, Saru lived like that for several days in the big city. I don't have to tell you what they do to homeless children. One day, he joined a group of kids like him on the street. But one night, some strange men came and loaded them all into cars. Saru never saw any of them again, and he himself miraculously managed to escape. Not knowing what to do, he just wandered through the streets of a huge metropolis, and tired of hunger and helplessness, the little boy sat down along the road in front of one restaurant. He saw through the window a young man who was having lunch. Imagining himself in his place, the boy moved his hands to his mouth, imagining an improvised spoon in his hands. In this way, he drew his attention to himself. The man began to ask him what he was doing alone on the street and where his family was, but he did not get a coherent answer, and took the child to the orphanage. The man could not find his parents, since the baby could neither read nor write, and he could not remember the name of his village. After unsuccessful attempts to find his parents, Saru was declared an orphan. But fate gave the little Indian boy an incredible gift. A couple from Australia saw his photographs and decided to take the baby. Across the ocean, a big house, good food, and caring parents were waiting for him. Life in Australia went on for Saru. School, new friends, computer games. He grew up among prosperous children and could afford almost everything. He went to college, drove his own car, but all the time the memories of that little village, his loving mother, and his big brother and sister remained in his heart. A large map of India was hanging in his room. Looking at it, the boy wondered what had happened to his mother, whether they would ever meet again, whether she would be able to recognize her now grown-up son. Time passed, but the hope never left the boy that one day he would be able to embrace his loved ones. As a college student, he had already spent hours on the Google app looking at a virtual map of India for hours, trying to find anything familiar from his childhood. Imagine for a moment, for more than a year, he spent 10 hours a day, sometimes 24 hours a day, studying every railway station in one of the largest countries in the world, of which there are more than 10,000 in India. After a while, fate rewarded him for all his efforts. Accidentally stumbling on satellite images, Saru could not believe his eyes. These were familiar places of his native village. The bridge, the rushing river, the factory where his mother worked. The village was called Ganesh Talai. He did not hesitate. He left everything and went there, where they had been waiting for him for many years. Arriving in India for the first time as an adult, finding his home in a small village, the young man wondered, what if they no longer lived here? If they would recognize him? While the boy was struggling with his fear, suddenly an older woman came up to him and gave him a warm hug. He didn't understand anything yet, but this woman turned out to be his mother. As soon as she saw Saru, she knew at once who was standing in front of the house. A mother's heart could not deceive. This meeting between her son and his mother took place after a long 25 years. But another thing awaited Saru. He found out that on that unfortunate day, his mother lost both sons at once. Godu fell under the train running across the tracks, went all night long looking for his little brother. Everyone said that I do not succeed. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. But if you want to find something, you will find it, recalls a young man. Saru now lives in Australia and runs his business. He sends money to his family every month, and they no longer have to work so hard. Several times a year, he visits his birth mother and sister with his new parents. His mother had tried for many years to find out the fate of her lost son, but her searches led nowhere. She had no choice but to wait and grieve for her little boy. A long 25 years later, Saru finally found his family and found peace in his heart. A movie was made about this story that touched the hearts of millions of people around the world, because the life of an ordinary kid and all the difficulties he faced are worthy of respect and attention. If you are also touched by this story, do not forget to rate and share it with your friends.